Okay, I have a question for you that is going to sound incredibly boring. Like
Uh-oh.
watching paint dry, levels of boring. But I need you to stick with me on this because, and I am not exaggerating here, it might actually explain the entire universe.
Wow. That is a very, very big promise for a Tuesday. I'm listening.
Here's the question. When you tell someone to do the dishes, what are the actual possible
That
outcomes?
sounds like a bit of a trap.
No trap, just logically. You ask a child or a roommate, hey, please do the dishes, break it down for me, what can actually happen next?
Okay, well, if we strip away all the nuance, it's basically a binary grid, right?
Binary grid.
You ask
Yeah.
them, they either say yes or they say no, and then,
Yeah,
well, they either do it or they don't.
exactly. It's a simple 2 by 2 grid, and that tiny domestic soapy little grid is the foundation for the huge stack of documents we are diving into today.
A massive stack.
We're looking at a collection of writings from an author known only as Leo, dated just recently, February 15th, 2026.
And it's a really eclectic mix, too. I mean, we've got a chapter here called The Secret of Life. We've got a personal letter to his mother called Sopron de Dios,
Which means surprise God.
Surprise God, yeah.
Yeah.
And then a bunch of notes that seem to bridge, of all things, neuroscience, theology, and
Mhm.
probability theory.
And the core mission of this deep dive is to unpack one specific framework Leo outlines. He calls it the parable of the fifth day.
Right.
And it takes that dishwashing scenario and somehow pivots into like quantum mechanics and the entire meaning of existence.
It really asks a fundamental question, How do we move from just following the rules, being a good person or a dutiful employee,
Hmm.
to actually growing?
From obedience to something else.
Something else entirely, yeah.
So, okay, let's go back to the sink. The source material lays out this scenario. A father asks a child to do the dishes.
Mm.
And Leo argues there are these 4 standard days, 4 responses that cover pretty much all of human behavior. Walk us through this matrix of predictability.
Sure. So you can imagine this playing out over a week. Day one, the father asks. The child says, yes, of course he'll do it. But then they don't.
The classic empty promise, the I'll get to it in a minute lie, we all know that
We
one.
all know it. Then day two,
Uh,
the child says, no, I won't do it. But then, grumbling and annoyed, they actually go and do them.
Reluctant obedience, which honestly, I feel like that's where a lot of us live.
It is.
We complain, we roll our eyes, but we do the job.
We do the job. Then day three, the
Right.
child says no, and they don't do it. That's just open rebellion.
Simple enough.
And finally, day four, the child says yes, and they do it.
Simple compliance. The
Yeah.
gold star student.
Right. And the text points out something really, really interesting here. By the end of day four, the child has used up every logical combination.
Yes, do, yes, don't.
No do, no don't. The father has seen the full spectrum of the standard human operating system.
It feels complete, doesn't it? Like, what else is there? You either obey or you don't. You either lie or you tell the truth. If I'm the parent and I get to day 4, I'm happy. Mission accomplished.
And that's exactly where most of us stop. We think life is about moving from day 3 rebellion to day 4 obedience.
Right.
We think the goal of religion or self-help or just being a good person is to become the one who says yes and does the job.
But the source material is saying that's not the goal.
Leo argues day 4 is actually a trap. It's better than rebellion, sure, but it's still reactive. You're still just a machine responding to an input. The goal is day 5.
Okay, hit me with it. What happens on the 5th day?
On day 5, the father doesn't ask.
Oh.
The child doesn't say anything. The child simply gets up, walks to the sink, and does the dishes before the request is even made.
Silence.
Vital silence. The text describes it as no yes, no no, no command, no obedience, no rebellion. It's a completely different category of action.
What does he call it?
It's described as initiative born from love.
I want to push on this a bit, though, because isn't that just, I don't know, extra credit? Like, okay, you did it early. Why is that the secret of life? It just sounds like being a proactive roommate.
It sounds minor, but think about the motivation. On day 4, why are you doing the dishes?
Because I was told to. Because there's a rule.
Exactly. You're a subordinate following an order.
Mhm.
On day 5, you aren't doing it because of a rule. You are doing it because you finally see the kitchen, the way the father sees the kitchen. You understand why the dishes need doing.
You've moved from, I have to do this, to, I want this to be done.
Precisely. You've moved from external pressure to internal alignment. You're not a servant anymore, you're a partner. And Leo takes this domestic idea and applies it to the biggest relationship possible. He asks, can you surprise God?
Which, on the face of it, is a paradox.
Right.
The text addresses this head on. If you believe in a god or even just a universe with physical laws, that entity holds all the information. An all-knowing being cannot be surprised by definition. It's like trying to surprise a calculator with a math problem.
You would think so.
Yeah.
But this is where the deep dive gets a little cerebral, mixing theology with probability theory. Leo argues that God, or the Father in the parable, doesn't just see one future.
Okay.
He imagines every possible version of your life. Every choice you could make is a branch on this massive probability tree.
So somewhere in the divine imagination or the multiverse, there's a version of me that did the dishes and a version of me that just sat on the couch eating chips.
Yes.
Arr.
The text calls these probability distributions. And here's the thing. Most human behavior is incredibly predictable. It sits in the fat part of the bell curve.
Right.
Humans generally follow the path of least resistance. We obey gravity, we obey our appetites, we seek pleasure and avoid pain.
So if I sit on the couch, God isn't surprised. That's the high probability outcome.
Correct. Even if you begrudgingly do the dishes day 4, that's still predictable. It's
Yeah.
within the standard deviation of duty. But surprising God isn't about showing him something he didn't know could happen.
It's about
It's about actualizing a specific rare branch of reality.
actualizing the rare branch.
The text calls it the low probability, high beauty branch. When you wake up and choose to do the dishes without being asked, not out of guilt, not out of fear, but out of pure initiative, you are collapsing a wave of possibility.
Collapsing the wave, that's a quantum physics term, right? Like with Schrodinger's cat.
Exactly. Until you act, you are just a bundle of possibilities. But when you choose that day 5 action, you collapse all those possibilities into a single reality of delight. The text says, you turned imagination into reality.
Wow.
Think about it. Parents know their kids could clean their rooms without being asked. It's a theoretical possibility. But when it actually happens, that is a shock. It brings a specific kind of joy because it wasn't compelled, it was free.
It's the difference between a robot programmed to say I love you and a person saying it spontaneously.
Yes, one is code, the other is connection. And Leo argues that this is the only thing we can actually give to the universe or to God.
The gift of the day 5 choice.
Everything else is just following the program.
Okay, so that's the philosophy. And it sounds beautiful, but also exhausting. I can't just will myself into having that kind of initiative every second of the day. I'm tired. I have a job. I have bills.
Of course.
The author seems to anticipate this. He gives us a mechanism, a visual metaphor to understand how to actually get there. He calls it the life cone.
Right, and just to be clear for everyone visualizing this, it's a cone of life, not a light cone or an ice cream cone.
Huh, right.
Picture a cone expanding outward from your chest. This cone represents the boundary of everything you can care about, everything you can genuinely act upon.
So for a baby, the life cone is tiny.
Infinitesimal.
Yeah.
It's basically just themselves and maybe their mom. If a baby is hungry, they scream. They don't care if mom is tired. They physically can't care. Their cone is just too small.
But as we grow, the cone expands. We start caring about friends, partners, our neighborhood.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Leo breaks the expansion down into 3 spheres. The first sphere is action. In the early days 1 through 4, action is reactive.
Yeah.
You respond to stimuli, you touch a hot stove, you pull back. Your boss gives you a deadline, you work.
Sure.
But as the life cone expands, action becomes generative. You don't wait for the stimulus. You see a problem, and you generate the solution.
You see the dirty dishes and you don't wait for the stimulus of someone nagging you.
You just generate order. You become a generator of order rather than just a consumer of it. The second sphere is co-creation.
Co-creation.
This is the shift from being a worker to a partner. There's a line in the text I absolutely love. You don't just wash dishes, you redesign the kitchen.
That's a huge aha moment for me. A worker washes the plate because they were told to. A partner looks at the whole workflow and says, hey, why are we even using these plates? They chip too easily. Let's get bowls.
Yes. You stop following the script and you start writing it. You aren't just maintaining the status quo, you are improving the system.
And the third sphere.
And then there's the third and widest sphere, care. This is about empathy. The goal, according to Leo, is to expand that cone until it includes not just your family, but strangers, enemies, the environment.
The text uses that famous proverb here, right? About planting a tree whose shade you will never sit under.
That is the ultimate day 5 action. It's a high beauty, low probability event. I mean, why would a selfish organism plant a tree for someone else 50 years from now? Evolutionarily, it makes no sense. But spiritually, it's the peak.
Now, There is a flip side to this life cone concept that I found really striking. It's almost a warning. The text talks about a perception gap.
Oh, this is crucial. This explains so much about human conflict.
It does.
The text says, a small life cone creates a small world. And here's the hard truth. The incompetent cannot see competence.
That sounds harsh. What does he mean by that?
If your life cone is small, if you're stuck in day 3 or day 4, you view everything through this lens of transactions and rules. I do this, so I get that. So when you see someone acting on a day 5 level, someone doing the dishes early, staying late to fix a problem without being asked, you don't think, wow, that's love. You think, what a show-off.
Or they're just trying to make me look bad.
Exactly. You interpret their high-level motive through your low-level lens. You project your own transactional nature onto them. The text says you can only recognize what you have grown enough to recognize.
If you've never felt that initiative born from love, you literally can't see it in others. You just see suspicion. That explains every toxic office I've ever been in.
It does.
The person trying to fix things is seen as a threat by the people just following the rules. So the obvious question is how? How do we expand the cone?
Right.
If we're stuck in the matrix of predictability, how do we break out? The author uses a term that sounds, frankly, like a death metal band, permanent self-attack.
It is intense, and I think a lot of people might recoil at that. It sounds like self-loathing, but he clarifies it immediately. It's not about hating yourself.
Right.
It's about applying the scientific method to your own soul. It's treating your beliefs and your habits as hypotheses, not facts. He calls it the disconfirmation engine.
So you have to be actively looking for evidence that you are wrong.
Constantly. If you think you're already perfect, your life cone stops growing. It calcifies. To grow, you have to attack your own certainty. And he uses this rocket analogy that I think is brilliant to explain how messy this process is.
A rocket analogy.
He says mistakes are exhaust,
Exhaust, like car exhaust.
like rocket exhaust. Think about a rocket launch. Giant clouds of fire and smoke. If you looked at just the smoke, you'd say, wow, what a disaster. Look at all that waste.
But without that exhaust, the rocket doesn't move.
A rocket that produces no exhaust goes nowhere.
Right. If you are afraid to make a mess, if you are afraid of the exhaust of being wrong or looking foolish, you will never leave the launch pad.
So exhaust is trying to do something nice and getting it wrong. Getting it wrong, yeah. It's trying to redesign the kitchen and realizing your new system is actually worse.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's exhaust. It just proves the engine is running.
That's actually really comforting because I think a lot of us don't try to do the day 5 thing because we're afraid of looking stupid if it doesn't work out.
Exactly. The goal isn't to be perfect. The goal is to be moving. To move from that predictable path to the beautiful path until, as the text says, day 5 becomes your default, not your exception.
I want to ground this a bit because we've been talking about rockets and multiverses and divine trees. And while that's all fun, I still need to know what to do on a Tuesday. The source material has this great anecdote about a bar. It starts like a joke. A neuroscientist, a law student, and an information theorist walk into a bar.
But there's no punchline. It's a lesson in listening.
Right. They're arguing about these high-level concepts, and then they start talking about a stranger. The text implies this stranger is the author, Leo, and this stranger taught the bartender a specific protocol for connection.
This is the practical application of the life cone. We could talk about expanding care all day, but what does that look like when you're tired and serving drinks?
Right.
The stranger gave the bartender the 5 rules of curiosity.
I actually wrote these down because they are genuinely useful. Rule 1, bring drinks more often just to be in earshot. Rule 2, affirm the last thing they said. Rule 3, ask a question to go deeper. And Rule 4, if you're stuck, ask why.
Standard active listening stuff so far. Good, but standard. But Rule 5 is the real kicker.
What's Rule 5?
Rule 5, if you're desperate, tell them about the stranger and take the hit.
Take the hit. What does that mean in this context?
It means use a scapegoat to build a bridge. If the conversation is dying or the customer is awkward, the bartender tells this story about some crazy stranger who gave him these rules. He makes himself look a little silly for following them. He lowers his own status to raise the customer's comfort.
That's a day 5 action.
It is. It's uncommanded humility. He's sacrificing his own coolness to create connection. He's planting a conversational tree.
So why include this bartender story in a text about the secret of life? It feels a little low stakes.
Because it shows how truth travels. The text argues that deep wisdom doesn't just travel through, giant stone monuments or university textbooks. It travels through bartender-level instructions, through habits.
Ah,
The bartender is now connecting with people better than before. He doesn't need to know the theology or the quantum mechanics. He just runs the protocol.
so the habit creates the growth. You act your way into a bigger life cone.
Precisely. You don't think your way into a new way of acting. You act your way into a new way of thinking. The rules are the training wheels for day 5.
Now, we have to address the cosmic scope of this. We've gone from the kitchen sink to the bar, but the text ends by going, well, everywhere. It talks about heaven, hell, and gravity.
Yeah, but not in the way you learned in Sunday school.
Not at all.
Let's start with hell. The source refrains hell completely. It's not fire and pitchforks. It is stasis.
Stasis.
It says hell is seeing the dishes, understanding the love behind the request, knowing you should do them, and choosing the couch anyway.
Wow. Hell requires the knowledge of what you are missing. That is chilling.
It's the pain of missed potential. It's being stuck in day 3 forever. It's knowing you could have expanded your life cone. You could have been a partner, but you chose to be small. The hell of a stopped engine.
And heaven,
Heaven is described as an infinite onion.
which I have to say, usually when people say something smells like an onion, it is not a compliment.
Fair point. But here it works because of the layers. The idea is that you never arise at heaven. You grow into it. Every time you expand your life cone, you peel back a layer. You discover something new you didn't know. It's an infinite process of discovery.
And in this model, what is God's role if we're the ones doing the expanding?
God is described as gravity, that pull you feel, that nagging sense that you could be better, that you should call your mom or pick up that piece of trash.
Yeah.
Leo says that isn't guilt. That is gravity. That is the creator pulling creation back toward himself.
That completely changes the feeling of conscience. It's not a wagging finger from a policeman. It's a magnetic pull from a source.
Right. Guilt pushes you down. Gravity centers you. And this leads to the ultimate mission described in the text. The author brings up the phrase, "Thy kingdom come on earth." He describes this as a phase transition.
Like physics again, water turning to steam.
Exactly. Imagine a pot of water being heated. At 99 degrees Celsius, it's still water. It looks like water, behaves like water. But you add that 1 extra degree of energy and then suddenly, poof, phase transition. It becomes steam.
A completely different state.
It operates by totally different rules. Leo suggests that we're trying to get enough souls past the tipping point living in day 5 so that the whole system crosses over.
So every time you choose that uncommanded act of love, every time you surprise God.
You are adding heat to the system. You are literally heating up the water. You shift the collective probability distribution of the planet.
Yeah.
You make it statistically more likely for your neighbor to do the same because you've shown it's possible.
You are bringing us all closer to the boil, closer to the phase transition where heaven on earth isn't just a metaphor.
That's the mission. And it starts in the kitchen.
So if we boil it all down, pun absolutely intended, what is the secret of life according to these documents?
It's simple, but it's incredibly hard. The secret is that life isn't about obeying rules or breaking them. Those are the early days. That's the sandbox. Life is about expanding your sphere of care, your life cone, until you generate acts of love that were never commanded. It's about creating beauty that surprises the universe.
I keep going back to that image of the fixed star the author mentions. He says the parable is a fixed star and we are in orbit. Every time we read it, every time we live it, we bring a bigger version of ourselves to it.
And that's why we need to keep coming back to it. Because the you that hears this today is different from the you that will need it tomorrow. Maybe today you're stuck in day 3 rebellion. Tomorrow, you might be ready for day 5.
The text ends with a very simple, very direct challenge. It doesn't tell us to go meditate on a mountain or sell all our possessions. It just says, go do the dishes before anyone asks.
It's the perfect place to start. It's the smallest possible day 5 action you can take.
It really is. Thank you for walking us through this. It's weird how a conversation about dirty plates can end up at the heat death of the universe and back again.
That's the fun of it. The mundane is just a spiritual in disguise.
To everyone listening, we hope you find that high beauty branch today. Collapse a wave of possibility into something good.
Surprise us.
Thanks for listening. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.